Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Um, Welcome back to another session on reflections on Surah Al-Mulk after Eid and a few other breaks. I'd like to start off by just refreshing our minds in terms of the context of Surah Al-Mulk. And we spoke about how when you look at the wording is coming off, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking in a way that is expressing that He is upset. Right? There's a type of strength, a type of cautionary rhetoric that's in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. And perhaps that is rooted in the behaviors of the mushrikeen, the polytheists, who are worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fighting the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, pushing it back against his da'wah. And so what we notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, most of the times referring to himself, or many times he refers to himself as Ar-Rahman, the benevolent. And what shirk is, essentially, one way of imagining it is that shirk is something that comes between the creation and Allah's Rahmaniyya, His mercy. And one of the things that upsets Allah most, if not the most, is when people get in between the creation and His Rahmah. And that is love. Right? That is Rahmah. That's part of Rahmah. And the analogy that's clearest to us is a parent with their child. A parent, a loving parent, a merciful parent, a caring parent will never let somebody come between them and their child. And they'll push all of that away. And any child who tries, or any person who tries to come and, brainwash the child from, your parents, you got to be suspicious of them, you got to be aware of them, right? The parent will see those individuals as the worst of people. Why? Because they are coming in between the parent and what the parent wants for the child, and that is mercy, that is success, that is what's in the best interest of the child. And to Allah belongs the highest examples. The mushrikeen, the polytheists, in their ideologies, in their behaviors, in their pushing back against the Prophet ﷺ, are essentially coming between the creation and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And so Surah Al-Mulk is coming and it's debunking shirk. It's showing how it's inaccurate. And it is showing where these people will end up. And that is the hellfire. And so continuing, we left off in verse 14, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does Allah not know what He has created? In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking a rhetorical question. By merit of Him being the creator, then the assumption is that Allah is most knowing of what He created. And this is, I think, pretty logically straightforward. If somebody, or imagine the person who invented the computer, right? And all these different, pieces within the computer, whether that's the memory or the hard drive or the whatever it is, the motherboard and all this stuff, the processor. The assumption is that if somebody invented these things, then they are the most knowledgeable of those things because they're the ones who put it together, understanding, okay, I'm making this for this purpose. I'm making that for that purpose. When you put the processor on the motherboard, it functions in a certain way. The assumption is that the one who engineered this is the most knowledgeable in comparison to other people, right? And so Allah, being the creator of the universe, is the most aware of the creation. And therefore, if that's the case, who better to go to for guidance than Allah? Who better knows what's in our best interest than Allah? Who knows what's more harmful to us than Allah? And we Muslims, we believe this 100%. Right? For us, this is a given. We don't even need to have this discussion. But it is mentioned in the Quran, and it is worth refreshing our minds. And we notice always, every now and then, new research comes to show that essentially what the Quran is telling us, the guidance of the Quran, is the best. Remember the phrase, a glass of wine a day is okay and it's healthy for you? Remember that? You say having a glass of wine every day, just one glass, is healthy for you. It's better for you. More recent studies found that's absolutely false. No wine, no amount of wine is healthier for you. Period. فَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَظِيمُ. Right? Allah has spoken the truth. Whatever it is, anytime Allah says something is haram, He says it's haram because of its negativity towards us. That's why it's haram. And when something's an obligation, it is because it is an essential part to our well-being, right? To our needs. And therefore it's an obligation. Who better knows us than Allah? Now, to make this extremely relevant in our times today, we Muslims, we have the belief, we believe in this, wa alaikum salam, right? And we also believe that Allah created things in a certain way. The human being was created in a certain way. وَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We created the human being in the best of statures. خَلَقَكُمْ خَلَقَكُمْ فَصَوَّرَكُمْ فَأَحْسَنَ صُوَرَكُمْ. Allah gave us our image. And He said, your image is fantastic. It's perfect. And Allah says, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. Allah is the best of creation. And the way He creates things, that original state, is where you find the blessings. That's how you maximize it. Now, in our times today, you have the shaitan's plan in full force. Maybe throughout human history, shaitan's plan has never been more in motion than now. What is that plan? وَلَا يُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. I will cause them to change the creation of Allah. Allah meant for this to be used in a certain way. Shaitan will come and say, no, use it in a different way. Allah created grapes for what? For our consumption. In it is a lot of good. In it is vitamins, benefits, whatever it is. That's what it's meant to be used for consumption. Maybe jelly as well, whatever. It wasn't created to be used as an alcohol. And so shaitan comes and he will take Allah's creation and twist it and encourage us to use it in a way it wasn't meant to be used. Hence how does Allah describe khamr? Rijisun min amal shaitan. It is an abomination from the actions of the shaitan. Right? And now the full motion is really about what it means to be a human being, what it means to be a male or a female, relationships between the male and the female, or beyond. Changing the creation of Allah. Male, female, that means absolutely nothing. It's a social construct. You can change it at free will. If today you want to be a male, that's your choice. Tomorrow you want to be a female, more power to you. After tomorrow you want to be a dog, go ahead, bark as much as you want. That's literally what they're saying. That is what Iblis wants, to change the creation of Allah. Because he knows your greatest potential is when you behave and act the way Allah created you for. I'll give you an analogy. You have different types of computers, right, for different purposes. You have computers that are engineered, have the specs of necessary for video creation. You have software, you have certain software that you can use for this. You have a computer that is engineered, is built with specific specifications for gaming. Another one is for engineering, right? For using it for Excel and using it whatever it is. And you have some computers that are simply for office work. It's not heavy duty. Now, if somebody buys a computer that's meant for office work, I'm talking about Word, Excel, these very basic, very easy programming. They take that, they buy that, and they start playing video games on it. What kind of a decision did that person make? They made a poor decision. And what's going to end up happening to the computer? You have a computer with basic specs. It's going to heat up and eventually what? It's going to burn, right? Why? Because it's being used in a way it's not meant to be used. How about somebody who buys a $2,000 PC that's made for video games and only uses it for office work? What kind of a decision was that? A what? A waste, right? A wasted, however, you could have saved $1,500. But not only that, the person isn't using the PC to its maximum potential. So both individuals are, because they are misusing what they have, they're either killing it or they're not getting the maximum potential out of it. Allah created a male, and by merit of being a male, his brain, his physiology, his body structure, his bone density, his muscle mass is created, it's in a certain way. Why? Because generally speaking, the man is supposed to take care of what? The heavy duty stuff, outside, physical. The woman, Allah created the female in a certain way. And therefore, her brain, her hormones, her physiology works in a certain way for what? So that she plays her role. I'm not saying there's a very specific role a man needs to play and a very specific role a woman needs to play. Allah gives us flexibility to deal with our times. But the idea is, in our times today, they tell women what? You could be a man, you could do exactly what a man does. And so what's happening to her? Like the PC that's meant to be used for a certain way, if you overuse it, use it in a way it's not ready to handle, what's going to happen to it? It's going to burn out. And when the man is reduced, no, you have to be soft. You have to be emotional. Talk about your feelings. Go ahead and put makeup on. Spend time in the mirror. They're not getting the maximum potential out of a man. Right? Now, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to play like super traditional and women just stay at home, do nothing, and just do housework, and men are outside. And that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is the culture of our times today is telling women you can be a certain way that they're not created to be. The muscle man. You see these muscular women now? They're taking testosterone. There's a reason why women don't have testosterone. There's a reason why, or they have very limited in comparison to a man. So what happens when you introduce something that's meant to be for a man into a woman? What's going to happen to her? What happens when you take away what is meant to be for a man? It destroys it. So we Muslims, we are 100% comfortable with the way Allah created us. And we understand that the prophets came for the purpose of reformation. Society is whack, society is doing wrong things. They come to reform the society. No, the way you're running this is unjust. We have to change it. No, these practices are inappropriate. We need to change it. That's true. But they also came for restoration. They came to restore the human being back to their fitrah, back to the way Allah created them. Because فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. As a Muslim, my question is, how can I preserve the way Allah created me? Because I know in that state, I can reach my maximum potential. That's how a Muslim sees it. Right? So, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. And Allah is Al-Latif and He is Al-Khabir. Khabir means, it's from khabar. And khabar is information. And so a khabir is the one who is acquainted with all information, no matter how nuanced, how small of the information might be, or how grand and how large and how public it might be. Allah is acquainted with all of that. Now, Al-Latif is a very beautiful name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It comes from the word lutf, and lutf has a few meanings. One meaning is compassion. And ultuf bi. And in the dua, فيما والطف بنا فيما جرت به المقادير. Be soft with us, be lenient with us in terms of the qadar. Be lenient with us. So Allah is al-Latif, He's very lenient, He's very compassionate. And you see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an example of that in the next verse, as we will get to. But al-Latif also means to know the very small details and then use those small details to bring you good and to prevent you from harm. In other words, let me give you an example. Somebody's walking, and there's a person behind them who has an ill intention towards them. So Muhammad is walking, and behind him is some man, a criminal, who wants to go and rob Muhammad. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala interjects. Allah knows that man wants to rob Muhammad. Muhammad has no idea. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends something, sends someone, does something to that person to prevent them from reaching Muhammad. And Muhammad has absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. And he will never know that at one moment in his life there was somebody about to inflict major harm upon him. And Allah protected him. Never knew. That is Al-Latif. Subhanah. And so it really begs the question, how many times did Allah protect me from harm and I have absolutely no idea? And it's also about bringing good. How many times has Allah brought me good in ways I didn't even realize this was brought to me? No idea. That is Al-Latif. And so Allah created the creation in a certain way. He created His creation with His lutf, that the body is preventing harm from the person and bringing them good without them even realizing it. A basic example is the respiratory system, breathing. I mean, we never think about breathing. We're always breathing. And when we breathe, there's something going on. We are inhaling particles in the air. Now, how much bacteria is in the air? How many germs are in the air? How many viruses are in the air at any given moment? And one of the scholars, I think it's Razi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, if Allah were to unveil to us everything going on in the air around us, we would not be able to comprehend it. Yet we are breathing in and out, breathing in and out, and the body's taking care of all of that. It's retaining the good and somehow expelling that which is harmful to us. And how many viruses actually reach our body, but the body somehow works against it? That is Allah creating the human being with a lutf. So that instead of spending our time focusing on breathing, we could spend our time focusing on worshiping the one who created us with his lutf, subhanahu. And he is al-khabir. When you look at the body, you study the human body, you study human anatomy, psychology, all of this stuff, you see that the one who created us in a way that shows immense knowledge, khibra. He knows what he's doing, subhanahu. Everything fits together. Nothing's out of place. Did you know, apparently, if you were to extend a person's veins, their veins, it would wrap around the globe twice. It would wrap around the earth twice. That is absolutely mind-boggling. How many miles is the circumference of the earth? I think it's 24,000 kilometers, something around that line, or 24,000 miles, whatever it is. You have nearly 50,000 miles of veins in your body. And Allah put it all together in a way you don't even notice it. And all of that is working, and the amount of cells, and just the list goes on and on and on. The one who created us with his lutf, and he created us with his name Al-Khabir, subhanahu. And if you really want to see Allah's lutf and his name Al-Khabir more blatantly in your life, you want something more tangible, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues and says, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He is the one, Ja'ala, He made the earth dhalul. What is the difference between the word dhalul and dhalil? Both come from dhul, and dhul means humility, or that which is humble. Right? But dhalul is different than dhalil. Dhalil means humiliation. So-and-so is dhalil, they are humiliated. And so it's something negative. Dhalul means humble. And so it's positive. Al-mu'min dhalul. The believer is somebody who is dhalul. They are humble. Whereas evil people are dhalil. They are humiliated. Right? So Allah created the earth dhalul, humble. Humble to what exactly? Humble to you, O human being. This earth Allah engineered it in a way where it is humble to your needs. Everything about it, from the oceans to the earth, to the mountains, to the valleys, to the sky, to the ecosystem, to the air, to the birds, to the animals, to everything is in your service. Even if the role of the animal is simply to keep a balance in the universe. A lot of fish, their role is to clean other fish so that we can eat them, or to clean the ocean so that it stays blue and beautiful to your eyes. When it's summertime, what kind of fruits come out? You have pears, you have what we call water filled fruits, full of water. Why? Because it's hot and you sweat and you need constant replenishment. And you know what? It gets boring to keep drinking water and you have to keep using the bathroom. So Allah says, let me make it a little bit nicer for you. In fruits, you get that water. Watermelon, for example, full of water. It's literally called watermelon. To replenish your water needs in a way that's more enjoyable than simply drinking water. Winter, what kind of fruits come out? Citrus. Well, what's in citrusy fruits? Vitamin C. Well, why vitamin C? Because people more likely get sick in colder weather. And vitamin C helps prevent that, helps build immunity. Subhanallah. And we have different personalities, we have different tastes. For some of us, we like sweet. For some of us, we like sour. For some of us, we like tangy. And notice, you have all the different kinds of fruits to satisfy you, so you could be happy. And you have different types of colors. So that's not just all plain, different colors. I mean, it's so beautiful when you see a bowl of fruits, just because of the colors. And they smell very nice. So imagine Allah created fruits in a way where it appeases your eyes, it appeases your nose, and it appeases your mouth, while simultaneously providing you with what your body needs so that you can be strong. That is Allah's lutf. That is His khibra. Subhanallah. He created this earth dhalul. We can form it, we can change it. Now we can move mountains. We can cut through mountains to make our lives easier. Anything, all technology is run by some sort of natural energy, whether that's electricity, whether that's nuclear power, whatever it is, water power, whatever it is, solar power. It powers all of our technologies that we need to do things. Before the technological era, the fuel for our animals and our mounts were what? Grass. Well, just send the camel, go and eat, and it'll come back by itself. Subhanallah. He made this earth dhalul. Right? Now, this earth, as the Prophet ﷺ says, this life, inna hadihi dunya hulwun khadirun. This life is sweet and it's beautified. And then the Prophet says, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مُسْتَخْلِفَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرَ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. And Allah has made you the stewards of the earth to see what are you going to do. In other words, the Prophet is saying this life is sweet and beautiful. It is attractive. You want it. But Allah is testing you with it. Earlier in the surah, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ. To test you. So the earth is humble to our needs. It's attractive to us. But it's still a test. So what is Allah's advice? فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. Walk on this earth. Go about, do your things. Enjoy yourself. But it says walk. فَامْشُوا. And that's very significant when you compare it to how Allah tells us and talks about the afterlife. When Allah encourages us to pursue the afterlife, what does He say? وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ. Hasten towards, quickly go towards Allah's mercy and paradise. وَسَابِقُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. And race towards Allah's mercy, race towards paradise. When it talks about pursuing worldly livelihood, what does Allah say? Famshu, walk. Take it easy. Take it easy. Allah didn't create you for this earth. He didn't create you and say you have to provide yourself. Allah says He will provide. Yes, we have a responsibility to work. And yes, we do believe the harder you work, the more Allah is going to give you. We do believe this. But it's the mindset. Is it everything to me? Or I do what I need to do, and then I am putting more effort in terms of the afterlife. فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ. Walk this earth. Enjoy it. Enjoy what Allah has to provide for you. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من ما في يا أيها الناس كلوا مما في الأرض حلالا طيبا. Eat from what's on this earth. It's halal. It's good for you, with the exception of a few things. Right? وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ. Eat from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides you. But always remember something. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. Going back to Him. In other words, walk this earth with the belief that you will go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is how you balance your lifestyle. Without this last element, people are lost. Without this last element, man begins to think he is a woman and woman begins to think she is a man. When a person excludes the afterlife from their life, everything falls apart because nothing makes sense. And it doesn't make sense because Allah created this world in a way that's meant to end, because we're not meant to be here permanently. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. Right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala switches gears again and goes back to kind of this main theme that we're setting for Surah Al-Mulk, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really rebuking and He's cautioning the mushrikeen. And He says, أَأَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ أَن يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضَ فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ. Do you feel safe from Allah who is above the heavens? Now, fi is a preposition that is normally used to refer to kind of in something, right? In something, whether that's in a certain place or in a certain state or in a certain time or era. But sometimes the word fi means ala, and above. So Fir'aun, he says, وَلَا أُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ وَلَا أُصَلِّبَنَّهُمْ فِي جُذُوعِ النَّخْلِ. Fir'aun says, I'm going to crucify them, and says inside the palm trees. But fi actually means above or on top of. So he's going to crucify them on top of palm trees. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَأَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ, do you feel safe from the one who is above the heavens? Another example of this is in Surah Al-Baqarah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هَلْ يَنظُرُونَ أَن يَأْتِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ظُلَلٍ مِنَ الْغَمَامِ. Are they waiting for Allah to come in clouds? No, not in clouds, above the clouds. Whatever that will end up being on the Day of Judgment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is posing a question to the mushrikeen. Do you feel safe from the one who is above the heavens, that He will يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضِ, He will cause the earth under you to collapse. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ. Tamur is al-ittirab, when something is off balance. And so it's referring to an earthquake. We see this all the time, don't we? I mean, there was an earthquake earlier this year, the end of last year, earlier this year, where countless people died all of a sudden, completely unexpected. Can you imagine? That's a pretty serious threat. Do you feel safe, O human being? You go about doing your things and you think Allah doesn't care, Allah doesn't intervene, Allah has just left the creation to be. أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور. أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاصبا. Or do you feel safe that the one above the heavens will not send upon you a hasiba? A hasib is a strong wind, like a destructive wind. فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ. You will sure know what I am cautioning you about. Now, we might be listening to these verses and it really doesn't shake our hearts. That's the unfortunate reality of our times today. But let's put things into perspective by putting the context. The mushrikeen, the Quraysh, Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, these guys, they wouldn't dare take an oath using Allah's name and lie about it. They wouldn't dare do that. Why? Because they feared Allah. They were scared of Allah. They, in their mind, in their worldview, right? Allah was Al-Malik. They never questioned that. Allah is Al-Qawi. They never questioned this. And so when the Quran is telling them this, it struck their hearts. It struck it really hard. Now we have our own issues, right? I don't have time to get into that. It's too long of a tangent. The idea is when Allah says these things to the mushrikeen, it means something. Right? To them, it scares them. Hence, when Al-Walid ibn Mughira went to the Prophet ﷺ and started scolding the Prophet, قَدْ فَرَّقْتَ جَمْعَنَا. You have divided the community. You have destroyed families. He started scolding the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet and his akhlaq. Silent. And then Al-Walid stopped speaking. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Are you done? Have you said what you wanted to say?" He said, "Yes." And then the Prophet ﷺ recited the first 13 verses of Surah Fussilat until he reached the verse, فَإِنْ أَعْرَضُوا فَقُلْ أَنذَرْتُكُمْ صَاعِقَةً مِثْلَ صَاعِقَةِ عَادٍ وَثَمُودٍ. When Al-Walid heard this, he said, "Hasbuk." He said, "Please stop. Please stop." He heard this. It meant something to him. And the question is, why did it mean so much to them? Yes, part of it is that they truly believe that Allah is powerful and He punishes. But notice the two punishments He's mentioning in these verses: earthquake from under and punishment from the sky, heavy winds. Who was punished with a heavy wind? Ad. Ad, the people of Yemen. Who was punished with an earthquake? Lut, the people of Lut, alayhi salam. Right? Why does Allah frequently talk about the story of Ad and Thamud and Madian and Lut? These four stories are repeated frequently in the Quran. Why? Because Allah says, وَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِالْمُصْبِحِينَ وَبِاللَّيْلِ. They knew about these people. They knew about these stories, and in their travels, they would pass by these lands. They knew what happened to them. And so when Allah cautions them of a punishment like an earthquake, He's pointing to the people of Lut. I did that to them. I could do it to you. When He cautions a punishment from the sky, heavy winds, destructive winds, pointing to Ad, you know these people. You know their stories. So it struck a chord in their minds and in their hearts. It meant something. And since we're so far disconnected from these stories, like in terms of actually seeing it, that it doesn't play the same role. And again, that's a different topic. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرٌ. The people before you, O Quraysh, rejected. What happened to them? What happened to them? You know them. And I just mentioned them. People of Nuh, to Hud, to Salih, to Lut, and to Shu'aib, alayhimus salam. You see all these stories. You know exactly what happened. Petra. Who's been to Petra? Anyone? Have you seen pictures of Petra at least? Yeah? What's Petra? What is it? For who? Huh? It said that Petra is one of the tribes of Thamud. One of the tribes of Thamud. People go and they visit it, and it's a tourist attraction. They're having the time of their life, and they're going in these homes. Wow, they used to live like that, and they're walking the lands. But for the believer, a civilization lived there, and they were wiped out. Even research today, when they study Petra and the civilization of Petra and who was there, they said something came to them that they had no way of preparing for, and it completely wiped them out. The Quran says it. The Quran says it. وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرٌ. Look at what happened to them. So Muslims take the ibrah. They take the lessons. And we tend to do this a lot in our sitcoms, which is a good thing, by the way. All Eastern sitcoms revolve more around real life scenarios, real stories that you could take lessons from. They tend to revolve around family, that one person who was harming everybody and what happened to him or her at the end of the story. And these are real life scenarios. So a believer takes the ibrah, they take the lessons from what happens, what goes on. They look at the world and they observe what's going on and they're asking, what is Allah teaching me here? The ups and downs of life, the causes and the effects, the pushes and the pulls. All of this is stating Allah is keeping the universe in order. وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُم بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْض. If Allah wasn't keeping things in balance, this universe would fall apart. And so Allah keeps things in balance. America keeps certain countries in check, and those countries keep America in check. This is how it works. Or else one dominant force would create chaos. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ. Do they not look at the birds above them? Safat means wings are spread out. وَيَقْبِضْنَ, wings are in. So when you look at birds, they're either flapping their wings are out and they're gliding, or sometimes they pull it in order to descend or to glide or to whatever it is, right? Allah says, do you not see that? Look at it. Well, again, to our modern minds, what's interesting about that? I mean, I don't really see I don't see a thing that really charges my iman. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. It is Allah who's holding them in the sky, and it's because of His rahmah, He's holding them in the sky. Okay, I still don't get it. You know, once I was in San Diego, you know that monument? What is it called? That monument in the peninsula. It has a really beautiful overlook of San Diego and the city, and you can see the naval base there. Hmm? Not the Mormons. It's like a small village, old town. There's like a lighthouse and a monument for some Spanish con. You could overlook the island. I forgot what it's called. Once I was there, and a Navy ship floated by. I've never seen a ship this big. It was enormous, but it was floating. It was floating. If you take a screw and put it in water, what's going to happen to it? It's going to sink. Yet this mega thousands of tons metal ship is floating on the sea. How? Now, some scientists can come and say, well, buoyancy and the laws of buoyancy and all that stuff. That's not my field. But if you calculate it in a way where you balance the buoyancy, anything can float no matter how heavy it is. Who created it that way? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in reality, who's holding the ship? Allah. We call it science. We can explain it in numbers and in scientific law. Allah says that's His rahmah. What you are studying is His rahmah. Because Allah created the sea, the ocean, in a way where if you understand it, things float. And He made it that way so that you can go about living your life, your conveniences. The same thing is true in aerodynamics. No matter, you can have something that is as light as a feather. But if you go like this, it just simply drops. And you can have something that weighs thousands of tons. So long as it has fuel, it will just fly in the air because of aerodynamics, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, look at the birds, it spreads its wings, it's able to fly, it puts its wings in, then it starts gliding or starts descending. Allah created aerodynamics in a way that we see the birds are able to fly as a result. So it is Allah's rahmah. And He created it that way. I mean, how beautiful is it that at any time we can buy a ticket and go do Umrah? Whereas back in the day, people would die on their trip to Umrah and Hajj. And forget it. If you live far away, forget Umrah. Just forget about it. You do Hajj once in a lifetime. And my grandmother told me when people would go out to Hajj when she was young, they would say goodbye to them as though they are never returning. But in Allah's mercy, He allows us to have airplanes that can function in certain ways so that it could take us from Los Angeles to Mecca in less than 24 hours. That's rahmah, isn't it? Isn't it rahmah that so much of business is abroad? It opens doors of opportunity that you have accessible to you simply because Allah created the sky in a way where you can use it to fly on it. That is Allah holding it. So it's not about Allah literally holding it, and that if Allah lets go, then everything falls apart. Well, of course, that's true. But how we can imagine in our times today is that the way Allah created the sky, the way Allah created the sea, is in a way where things float on it because Allah in His mercy wants us to have more options. Subhanahu min ilah. Right? And in His mercy, He taught the bird how to fly. Spread your wings, right? And you can fly. Bring your wings in, you can descend. ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير. Allah sees all. Now, basar here can mean alim. And the Arabs would say fulanun basarun, meaning hadiq. So and so is knowledgeable. I mean, they are smart. They see the precision in everything. Right? Or it could literally mean basir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees all. And therefore, O Quraysh, look at the details I put in the bird. I am holding the bird from falling. And therefore, I'm holding you from falling. It's the same thing. Right? أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ يَنْصُرُكُم مِّن دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ. And then Allah poses a question. Or do you think that your armies, and Allah is referring to the idols. I have this idol, I have 17 idols that I worship. It's like an army of idols. They have different powers and whatnot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, your armies, these people, are they going to protect you from Allah? Right? أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ يَنْصُرُكُم مِّن دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ. Can they protect you from Allah? From Ar-Rahman? Can they? They know they can't. And the evidence for that is when they would do Hajj, what would they say? لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إلا شريك هو لك تملكه وما ملك. This is what Quraysh would say when they do Hajj. They say, oh Allah, we obey you, we hear your call, we answer your call. You have no associates except certain partners who you own and they don't own you. You have sovereignty over them, they don't have sovereignty over you. Okay, you admit that. All right, people. If Allah punishes you, can they spare you? The answer is absolutely not. Allah says, قُلْ مَنْ يَكْلَأُكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ مِنَ الرَّحْمَنِ. Who protects you day in, day out, other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who could protect you from Allah? No one. إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. The disbelievers are deceived. They are in a state of deception. And the word ghurur is very interesting, it's very complex. And ghurur, gharra, originally means that which is apparent. So the Prophet ﷺ says about the believers, in fact, as soon as I can remember the beginning of the hadith, he says that the believers are resurrected غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ مِنْ أَثَرِ الْوُضُوء. غُرْ. Right? Their faces are bright because of wudu. The nur that we get from making wudu. And a horse that is ghur is a horse that has a white head. So it's apparent, it's clear. And so what is ghurur? Ghurur is to show something that something is apparent, but it's not really as it seems. That is ghurur. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that disbelievers, they're in a state of ghurur, they're deceived. They look at these idols, they think it's real, they think it's beneficial, when in reality, it's not the case. And where does that come from? It comes from the shaitan. Right? The shaitan comes and beautifies certain actions, makes it seem a certain way, makes it seem right, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the queen of Saba. Right? وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. The shaitan beautified their behaviors. What were the people of Saba doing? They were prostrating to the sun, right? And they were worshiping the sun. And Allah says the shaitan made that action beautiful in their minds. Allah says, أَفَمَنْ زُيِّنَ لَهُ سُوءُ عَمَلِهِ what? فَرَآهُ حَسَنًا. What is the state of a person who their bad deeds are made beautiful to them so that they think is actually good? That's scary, by the way. That's scary because that's not limited to disbelievers. We could be in the same place, same situation. In fact, practicing religious people could be in the same situation. The Khawarij, ISIS, and these guys, if you ask them, what are you? They'd say, I'm a mujahid fi sabilillah. I'm a wali min awliya. This is how they view themselves. I am a righteous person doing what pleases Allah. Yet the same person knows that that person is min kilab nar. They are of the dogs of the hellfire. But look at the difference. أَفَمَنْ زُيِّنَ لَهُ سُوءُ عَمَلِهِ فَرَآهُ حَسَنًا. So ghurur is a very scary thing. It's a very scary thing. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ would constantly make dua, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Allahumma ya musarrif al-qulub, sarrif qalbi ila ta'atik. The changer of hearts, keep my heart firm. The Prophet understood it. He was sensitive to this meaning, and we should be even more so. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ إِنْ أَمْسَكَ رِزْقًا. What will these gods give you rizq if Allah withholds it from you? Now, when Allah talks about rizq in this context, it's mainly referring to water and rain and the natural sources. If, if we don't get clouds today, with all the technological advancements, if we don't get clouds, who can make it rain? What can make it rain? If we have a constant heat wave, who can stop that? Who? If the sun doesn't rise tomorrow, who can make it rise? If the moon starts falling outside the orbit of the earth, who can bring it back? Nobody. Not a deity, not a human being, no technology whatsoever. Look how vulnerable we are. And now notice here, or before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍ وَنُفُورٍ. Lajja means, lajja means to repeat, a repeated behavior. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ فِي بَحْرٍ لُجِّيٍّ يَغْشَاهُ مَوْجٌ مِّن فَوْقِهِ مَوْجٌ. An ocean that is lujji. It's going back and forth, right? One wave comes, another wave comes, another wave comes, and another wave comes. So a taraddud, that's what the word I'm looking for. So after you bring these statements to the disbelievers, lajju, they keep going back and forth between what? Utu and nufur. Utu is takabbur. It is behaving with in an inappropriate way. And nufur is to isolate, to disconnect. So they go between acting with arrogance and then isolating or disconnecting. Acting with arrogance and disconnecting. They have this back and forth going on, and both are negative, by the way. Now, let's notice something here. There are 4 cautionary verses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents in the verses we just took. Allah says, أَأَمِنْتُمْ. Now, picture this with me. Imagine this. أَأَمِنْتُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ أَن يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضِ. Allah causes an earthquake. So imagine you're standing on earth. The earth under you can be your punishment. And then Allah says, أَن يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا. From above you. So what is under you other than earth? And what is above you other than sky? Now, in difficult situations, you can resort to your acquaintances, your people. You say, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And can you do this for me? Can you do that? Can you get me out of this situation? Allah says, who can help you? Who can help you from Allah? Bring your armies. Who can help you from Allah? That's gone. Well, maybe you don't need other people because you have money. Money is power, isn't it? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمَّنْ يَرْزُقُكُمْ أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ إِنْ أَمْسَكَ رِزْقَهُ. Allah can withhold your rizq. In other words, these four verses are creating this all-encompassing image that Allah can take everything away from you. The earth under you can harm you. The sky above you can harm you. The people around you can't help you. Your money can all fall apart. What's left? What's left? Nothing. In fact, there's only one thing left. That is Allah. That's Allah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ أَهْدَى أَمَّنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. The scholars differed over exactly what this means. Al-mukib al-munqalab, right? That which is upside down is the one who walks upside down on their face, more guided than the one who is sawi. Sawi means complete, upright, and on the straight path. Right? Now the question is rhetorical. It's obvious. Of course, the one standing upright on the straight path is more guided than the one who's on their face. Right? But what's meant by that? What's meant by the person on their face? Well, one opinion is that it's referring to the day of judgment. يوم يحشر على وجوههم إلى جهنم. They will be resurrected on their faces. So it's referring to the afterlife and the state of the disbelievers. Another, it's referring to the realities of shirk versus tawheed. When somebody is worshiping other than Allah, they have completely turned reality upside down. You know, we look at our times today, and these people, how they can look in the mirror, see everything that describes a man, and say, no, that's a female. And so, shuhal junoon. What is this insanity? It's obvious. You see, when we have debates, when we disagree, it's over things that aren't clear. Right? It's not obvious. But no two people are going to question whether the sky is blue or pink. Well, the sky is blue. It's clear. You see it. It's tangible. There's no questioning that. So when people look in the mirror and see every single attribute of a male and say, no, that's a female, that's insanity. Wallahi, it's insanity. But this isn't the first time human beings have become insane. Shirk is a type of insanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَرَاهُمْ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْكَ وَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. Talking about idols. These idols are made, they're erected, they're carved, and they have a face, and they have eyes, and they have ears, and they have a nose, and they have hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَهُمْ أَيْدٍ يَمْشُونَ أَمْ لَهُمْ أَيْدٍ يَبْطِشُونَ بِهَا أَمْ لَهُمْ أَرْجُلٌ يَمْشُونَ بِهَا أَمْ لَهُمْ آذَانٌ. I mix up the verse, but the idea is they have eyes, but they don't see. They have ears, they don't hear. Yet people are going to them as though they see and they hear, and they're asking them for things. And there's no response. None. You know, there's a story where during the era of Dawah, before Arabia became fully Islam, two young men were giving Dawah to their friend who was a mushrik. They said, man, leave these idols, just worship Allah. And he said, no, I want my idol, my idol. And so this man, he's telling his own story after he became a Muslim. He's telling his own story as to why he became a Muslim. He said, I was extremely hungry. Like I'm dying of hunger. And I have a bowl of milk. You know, back in the day, a bowl of milk, a bowl of yogurt, that's a meal. But he was in a dilemma. Do I drink it myself? Or do I give it to my God, my idol? And in his devotion, he said, I'm going to give it to my idol. So he goes, he puts the bowl of milk in front of the idol. Now notice, a God needs to eat. Allah says, وَهُوَ يُطْعِمْ وَلَا يُطْعَمْ. And Allah created you to give you, not to be given. So he puts the bowl of milk in front of the statue. And then it crosses his mind, what if somebody tries to take it from him? He puts his sword, and then he hangs a sword on the idol. So you could defend yourself. This is a true story. And then the man goes away. He says, I come back. What do I see? I see a dog drinking the milk, and then after it drank the milk, it urinated on the statue. And then it just went. And then the man said, Wallahi, that dog is smarter than me. And he accepted Islam. We look at ourselves today and we think people have gone crazy. They're making male into female, female. They have confused gender. Shirk is the same thing. It's a type of insanity. أَفَمَن يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ. They flipped reality around. And so it's as though they're walking on their faces. Another is al-ard al-mukab. Land that is mukab is land that the elevation is constantly changing. And so what's easier? To walk on land that is flat or to walk on terrain that's going up and down? Of course, the land that's flat, right? But this is, of course, it's an analogy here. The life of a believer who worships Allah alone and applies the Sharia, Allah makes the earth flat. فَامْشُوا فِي هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. Very easily navigate this earth. That is what Allah makes your life when you obey Him sincerely. But for the mushrik, they have to go up and down, they have to sacrifice, they have to do things just to make dua. There's a documentary in Nepal where they worship a god that lives on top of a mountain. The climb is 5 kilometers, 3 miles. And the only time you can enter upon the god is in the early morning. And so these people, if they have to make dua, what do they have to do? They have to get up early morning, walk up a 5-kilometer mountain. It doesn't end there. You have to pay. You have to throw some money in that fountain. Of course, the one who's cleaning up the area takes it all, puts it in his pocket. We know how the game is, right? In order just to make a dua. And then they have to walk all the way down, 10 kilometers, in a very specific time, small window. And they have to pay in order to make dua. Literally, the one who worships other than Allah makes their life full of obstacles, that they constantly have to jump over all these hurdles. Who has a better lifestyle? Who's more, on the right path? Of course, the one who's sawi, upright. And so the world makes sense. They understand how to use things. They understand أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ, that Allah is the most knowledgeable of His creation, and therefore the best way to maximize what you benefit from this creation is by simply using it the way Allah created it to be used. You get the most barakah in that way. Right? That person is truly more guided than the one who flips reality around, uses things in ways that they're not meant to be used, ignores things that in terms of how they're meant to be used. ونسأل الله العفو والعافية. We'll go ahead and stop there. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وإياكم يا رب. Any questions?